Welcome to Beyond the Brand, the podcast that takes you inside the world of franchising, brought to you by Business Alliance Incorporated. We're here to share real stories, expert insights, and strategies to help you navigate the franchise industry with confidence. Let's dive in.
All right, well, welcome in, and thank you to anyone who's tuning in to this episode of BAI's Beyond the Brand. I appreciate your time and taking some time to get to know a little bit more about some of our franchise partners. And I get the privilege to talk to so many wonderful franchisees. And today's episode, I'm here with a CMIT Solutions franchisee, Arvin Har. Hope I got that right.
Good.
He's been in the Phoenix market for about 5 years now as a franchisee. So we'll hear Arvin's story of how he found franchising and CMIT in particular. And then we'll get to listen to his story in the last 5 years as a CMIT franchisee. So Arvin, first off, I just really appreciate your time today. I'm sure you're really busy, and taking a few minutes to sit down here with me and share your story means a lot.
Thank you for having me. It means a lot to be here. I'm honored. I
Yeah.
don't know why you guys picked me, but I hope I can add some value to it.
Well, you came in with high words from Lisa at CMIT. So very much looking forward to the conversation today.
I really hope I live up to those expectations.
I think you will. I think you will. I like to start these conversations off just to know a little bit more about you. So just curious, before franchising was even an idea for you, what was your background? What industry did you come up through professionally?
Oh, I worked in corporate all my life. I've worked in corporate for 17 years before I started any of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was born and raised in India. I worked about 7 years there in corporate, came to the US in 2010. And here I worked for Hawaiian Airlines. I worked for Silicon Valley Bank, which is no more. I used to work for Northern Trust, Allergan. All of this I did as a consulting gig through the company that I was employed with, which is Tata Consultancy Services. I worked with them for 10 years.
Okay.
And all throughout, I just wanted to always do something on my own. Like I had this entrepreneurial spirit. I just didn't know how to execute it. And it's a funny story. After I started CMIT and it started becoming a little successful, I sat down and thought back one day and I realized I've started and failed in 7 other businesses before I started CMIT. Right? Like I always tried to do something on the side. Like when I was working back in India, I started a design firm where I design logos and things like that. My wife and we tried to sell pickle. We'd make mango pickles at home and tried to bottle them and sell it. We tried to sell masks on Etsy during COVID, and that one kind of blew up, but it was very short-lived, 45 days, because the factories were closed and people needed masks, and so we were sewing these till 2 a.m. in the morning and selling them on Etsy. Theme that I understood about all of this is I learned a lot, right? You start these businesses and you fail and you learn a lot. And it didn't satisfy that really grand business that I wanted to start and build, which is what I thought which is when I decided, you know what, I don't know how to build a brand, build awareness, and build a great business around it. So let me look into franchising. So that's a little bit of a background on how it all started.
You wanted something with that blueprint, but I do think there's something to be said about not being afraid to fail as an entrepreneur. And what do you think were the main lessons you learned from those previous entrepreneurial pursuits that you took on? What were the biggest lesson you came away from that experience with?
Oh my God, it was a lot of learning from each of those failures. The main thing I'd say that caused a lot of those failures was because I wasn't dedicated enough and giving it all of the time that it needed. So that's the first thing. Like I would be working full time for a company and then I'll try to do this on the side. Second thing is a good business that is successful is a well-funded business. So you need to create that runway of capital, time, and all of that to be able to build a business and then take off. When we had our second son back in 2019, And I was working full time and my wife was working part time. And when we decided, okay, after our due diligence, we are going to go with CMIT, my wife said, you know what, I'll go back full time because your income is going to go to zero and we're going to live poor. Let's be sensible about it. So we listed all of our expenses on the personal side, and we wanted to make sure we have enough cash and capital on the business side for this to be successful. So you need to come into this together, if especially if you're a husband and wife,
Absolutely.
as a family. It's not a
Mhm.
personal decision just one person makes in a family and then just says, again, everyone's different. For us, this is how it was. So I think those two lessons were really important for me in making that transition from those failures to being able to allocate time and capital, not only on the business side, but also on the personal side, making sure that is taken care of. The good news is, as of December 23, my wife was able to quit her job.
Oh, that's
So
excellent.
she went back full time for 3 years for us, for the family. And now she works in the business, on the business, few hours a day, and she gets to spend a lot of time with family. So that's
Oh,
been
that's
a
great. That's amazing. So when you had that shift mentally of going from side hustles to I'm going to commit to something all in, what
yeah.
was it about CMIT in particular that made that decision easy for you? That's the business you want to pursue.
That's a great question. And the only thing I was sure about is that I don't know how to build a business from scratch from those 7 failures in the past. So I knew I wanted to go into franchising, right? And I didn't know about CMIT. I didn't know about any of this. So whenever you think about franchising, at least for me, you think about McDonald's, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah. 90% of people, I feel like, share that same thought.
right. So in my head, what was happening was I read this book called The Educated Franchisee by
Mhm.
Eric Biggio, if I'm not wrong. That book was such an eye opener. And it for anyone who's working and is looking into franchising, I would recommend that book. It's not only the book primarily gives you a process around how to identify a franchise that works for you and
Mhm.
that'll make sense to you. So it helped me ask myself and answer questions like, what type of business do I want to have? What type of clients do I want to have? What type of hours do I want to work? What type of people do I want to manage? How much can I invest? What type of a return am I looking for, right? How much time do I have in order to get to this point? How big do I want to build these things? So these are questions that we take lightly and don't really think about it. But that I did research for about 6 months, right? Before I quit my job and went into this business, because I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to build this app and I'm going to be a billionaire.
Right.
So I did this research, and when most often people, when they get into doing this research, you get into an analysis paralysis, right?
100%.
So I worked with a franchise coach, and the coach, and even the book talks about what are the skills that you have, what do you
Mhm.
bring to the table, and based on that, there are 4,000 franchising opportunities out there. You want to narrow that down very quickly, very fast, based on all of those criterias and the
Right.
questions that you answer. And my franchise coach was able to narrow it down to 12. And from that 12, we quickly dropped off 5 or 6. We looked at another 6 and a little closely. CMIT was one of them. And then we met with the teams and all of that. And I could really see myself being part of this franchising system and this group, and the people were nice. And then at that point, it was down to the last 3 that we were finalizing, but we really honed into CMIT and and then got to speak to 10 or 12 other CMIT owners
Right.
and validate, which is
Mhm.
a great process that all franchises have, where you get to validate with other owners. That was a big plus because I had so many questions as a new business owner, and I got all of that answered. So all in all, knowing that I wanted to focus on this and not endlessly be researching, I'd recommend that book. And I'd recommend getting like a franchise coach. The thing
Yeah.
about the coach is the coaches are, you don't pay anything for the coach. The coach is paid by the franchising organization and the book talks about it too. So
Yeah.
it's a good resource for anybody who's looking at getting into franchising.
Yeah. And I just want the record to show I did not coach Arvin to say that at all or prop up brokers. That happened organically. We appreciate it. But yeah, it makes the process a lot easier. And do you think you would have ever found CMIT if you did your own research without working with a franchise broker?
No, I didn't know of CMIT. I now that I'd go into buy sell biz, there's some
Yes, you're right.
and then I'll see CMIT and I'm like, oh, I know that company, right?
Yeah.
but but I had no clue, right?
Yeah.
Because like I like I mentioned, right? I'm coming from the standpoint of, oh, franchising, McDonald's, Taco Bell, whatever, right? And then you step in and realize there's this whole ocean of businesses, and it doesn't have to be food, and
Right.
it can be IT. And I had 17 years of experience in IT, right? So when I talk to a lot of my family members and relatives who are not in IT, they're all dying to get into IT because it's a skill, it's a technology that, I mean, it's a niche market, and it's a service that everybody needs all the time. But
Right.
it's changing rapidly. So I was almost at a point thinking maybe I'll quit my corporate IT job and start a restaurant or something else. But the right thing to do was hone in on those skills and
Yeah.
then build on top of that. And this was a perfect match. I don't think I would have
Yeah.
found that. Yeah.
Yeah. Finding a business where you can use your existing skills and that elevates you as an owner. And to piggyback on that, when you first started with CMIT as a franchisee, what were those skills from your background that you think helped you the most that you were able to use on a day-to-day basis?
That's a great question. I didn't have any sales experience
Mhm.
selling to clients.
Right. Yeah.
I did not have any. So I was really scared when I started. I was like thinking, I was an IT guy who worked in help desk, who did end user support, right?
Mhm.
He moved into project management. I managed platforms and managed development teams, but I was never this sales guy in IT. I
Yeah.
never sold anything. What I was really good at is identifying what type of challenges our users had and figuring out how am I going to quickly and elegantly solve this, right? And that's what I've been doing all through my IT career, be it on the phone with a user, be it in front of a CEO's computer, right?
Right.
Or be it in handling large enterprise wide solutions, right? How do we help our clients, end users, achieve the outcomes that they desire? That's the question we're always trying to answer as part
Mhm.
of IT. So I think having that skill as a problem solver, I think that really helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the biggest learning curve from going to being that direct support person to now managing people who are doing that, consulting with companies on their technology solutions that you kind of had to put on a different hat than what you were used to, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. There are a couple of reasons why people start a business, right? And this one is a touchy subject, but there's no nice way to say it, right? There are good reasons for starting your own business and bad reasons for starting your own business.
Absolutely.
And to make the difference, I would say, like, if my reason to start a business was because a friend of mine or a family member of mine started it and they were successful, now I want to do that, that is not really a good reason to start. If your reason, mine was financially motivated too, right? Sometimes that can be good or bad, right?
Mhm.
But if I'm not a team player at my corporate job, I don't like my boss, and that's a reason for me to start a business, is again not a good reason to start a business, is how I feel. The reason I bring this up is because when I started the business, I wanted to be financially independent. I felt at the corporate level, my upper management was changing every 18 to 36 months. And
Yes.
I had to go back and reprove to them everything that I've done. And I was 38 at that time. I'm 42 now. And when people hit 49, 50, 55, they constantly get ejected from their position. They're hiring somebody who's 10 years younger than them and things like that. And my whole goal in corporate was to build to this being the CIO or CTO type position, which is there's one opportunity and
Right.
there's like a department of 1,000 people trying to achieve that. So, or be at a director or a head of type position. But the head of and the directors were there for 18 to 36 months. So what am I really working
Striving for it.
towards,
Yeah.
striving for, and what
Yeah.
is this? So I decided after reading that book and doing the research and everything, it's probably I'm at a good point where I can step out of being in the corporate role, middle management, moving into starting my own business. And I have 20 years more from 30, let's say 38 till 58 to really get good at being my own business owner and then building a team and then getting better every day in building this business. So I basically said, okay, I'm in kindergarten, day one, starting this business. I'm going to start this business and then get better at it every day, right?
Yes.
Role, I just had my tasks, my role. Here I had to think about marketing. I had to think about sales. I had to think about hiring. I had to think about what type of tools we're going to put in place. And the best thing about franchising for me was I could pick up the phone, talk to another owner and ask them how did they solve it. Another
Yeah.
CMIT owner will say, hey, this is the same issue that I had. This is what we did and it worked for us. And I'll copy and implement, copy and implement.
Yeah.
So what that does for me is I'm not inventing the wheel. I'm just learning from someone else's experience who's part of the system, who is invested in my success
Yeah.
and the system's success. So I hope that kind of answers the question. And that is the biggest change, right? From being in corporate to working. I'm still learning. I have a lot more to learn. I think in 4 years, I have 4 years experience in building a business, but that's really nothing
Right.
when you
Yeah.
think about all the big entrepreneurs that are out there, not only in CMIT, but in other fields. They've done it for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
And that's why they are industry leaders. So,
Yeah.
and
I think I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that's a really underrated advantage of joining a franchise system is yes, the franchisor has amazing support and training and everything, but a lot of franchisees lean on each other too because they're encountering the same issues you encounter. And it sounds like CMIT has a really collaborative culture among franchisees. Is that right?
oh, absolutely. I think CMIT has a great system that lays a good foundation for a lot of businesses to hit the ground running. And that you can use from your initial training to getting your business off the ground.
Yeah.
And at every level, as you're growing, you have another owner who's at that level or has been been in that level like a few years ago, and they're always improving. So you'll get a ton of knowledge from them as well, right?
Yeah.
The challenge that CMIT has, which is ahead for them in the future, is in the last few years, CMIT has seen explosive growth. And along with this growth comes new challenges. But these are good problems to have, in my opinion. And with the amount of brain power that CMIT has in its leadership, through its owners, and through the various groups that we have on the tech side, on the owner side, and things like that, I have no doubt that they'll figure it out and get past that point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And from the franchisor's point of view, or at least your point of view toward the franchisor, you leaned on other franchisees a lot for support. But early on, what do you think you leaned on CMIT corporate for support with the most as a new owner?
This is a great question. My answer, I like to share this, and it's kind of embarrassing to think. Before I started in this business, I thought marketing, sales, and PR were the same thing. I didn't even know, right? So I didn't even know that marketing is how you get the leads in, and then sales is the process of converting those leads into
Right.
customers, and PR is what you do in order to build positive brand awareness. So, like, in the sense, I was in IT and that was my thing, and I you don't give thought to these things. One of the things I loved about learning and training is how to write a good proposal. How do you incorporate? You're always coming in from a background of, hey, how who can talk the most and out
Yeah.
talk the other person,
Right.
and you start your own business, and then now you have to now you get to sit in front of the client and then say, tell me all of your pain points, keep your mouth shut, and then listen, and then just write down all of the challenges that they have. And then now you get to put a good proposal to them, back to them saying, okay, these are, so we met, this was your challenge, this is your current setup. Have I got it right? This is what you're using today. This is how we would change this and improve it. So I think that whole process of understanding the client, listening to them, making a note of it,
Yes.
that was taught to me by CMIT.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
we've done that in at corporate. I've done, oh, okay, let's put a requirements document together, and then we'll do that. But really listening to your clients, I think that is big.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so now you're in the shoes of a franchisee in your first year, and being in business to business sales in a way, a lot different than having a storefront that customers are coming to or going to people's homes to perform a service. So,
Yeah,
what was your strategy out of the gate to find clients, and what seemed to work the best for you early on?
that's a great question. So one of the things we learned as part of training, very early on, I understood what it's going to take to be successful in this business. It's not a business where customers are sent to you. It's a business where someone might raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in what you have to offer. Can you tell me more?
Right.
And at that point, you meet with them and understand their pain points, put a proposal together. And then I understood that in talking to about 10 or 12 other owners, some of them had closure rates of 9 out of 10 proposals. Some of them had 5 out of the 10 proposals that they put out will convert into a client. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
had 3 out of the 10 clients that they put out a proposal for that will convert into a client. I said, you know what? I'm probably going to be the worst. So I need to put out 10 proposals to get 3 clients. So my whole way of thinking turned into, my job is to try and get leads from one side, put proposals out, convert them into clients. And I love that the business model is a recurring revenue business model, and how that provides a good steady flow of cash for the business. My dad was in business, and he was in real estate. He'd close a deal and then would be like, hey, it's a party. And then there'll be times when you won't get to close a deal for a long time. And
It's the family. Yeah.
so very early on in life, I was like, okay, financial security is going to be very important for me.
Mm.
And that's one of the reasons I was in corporate. And then when I started looking into a business, I was like, okay, I want something where I can have a recurring source of revenue. It's not seasonal. And yeah, so all of those things went into figuring out what type of a business will be right for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the main driving force, right? So understanding that, putting together a process in place to generate the leads, get in front of them, understand the pain points, put out proposals, convert
Mm-hmm.
them to clients, repeat, rinse, and repeat, right? And then I was able to do in a spreadsheet an extrapolation of, okay, if I had so many clients signing up every month, this is
Mm-hmm.
what my annual revenue will be. If I had so many less clients signing up, this is what it'll be. So this is where I want to be. And if I want to be here, this is how many proposals I
Well,
need to get
yeah.
out. If I need to get this many proposals, I need to get so many leads. And how do I
Mm-hmm.
get those leads? And CMIT taught me how to get those leads.
Okay. Excellent. And so what did a typical day in the life look like in those early days? I'm sure you're wearing a lot of hats, a lot of different roles and
Yeah.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through that?
Yeah. So I made this decision somewhere. I said, you know what? I want to be a well-rounded person. I want to be a good father, a good husband, and a good business owner.
Yeah.
My advice to you now, don't do that to yourself. It's very hard.
Give yourself some grace.
Give yourself. But again, it's very nice to have a supporting and understanding wife and a family. And at the same time, you have to remember it is a marathon and not a sprint. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So you
Right.
cannot do anything without a team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when a team, it's you, the relationships you build with other owners, without your family, right? If my wife didn't go in and say she's going to work full time, I don't think this would have worked out. And then our techs are so amazing. They take full ownership of everything that they do. We can't ask for better people to be working with. We're just so lucky in that regard. And so a typical day in my life is getting in, making sure. So ideally, I should be spending 50% of my time in sales efforts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sales and marketing, and then 25% of my time in operations, and then 25% of my time in, 25% in service delivery, and then 25% in operations, bookkeeping, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But as your clients grow, the amount of time you end up spending in service delivery becomes a little bit more. So it's always important to make sure your existing clients are happy and realizing the value they bring in, and at the same time, not compromise business growth. And you want
Right.
to try to make time for that. So the first 18 months, I would start at 8, work till 5, and then I'll spend 5 to 8 with the family. Then I'll go back to work from 8, and I'll work till 10, 11, 12, 1, whatever it is. And I'll do the same the next day, get up. So I was really driving myself insane and everybody around me insane. And then I realized once we are at a point where we are pretty comfortable, it's not good in the long run. And there's another book that I read called Unwind. It was recommended by one of the CMIT trainers. He said, read this. And it talks about how what we end up doing in life is creating stress for ourselves and how to avoid that. And that helped me a lot. I wouldn't say I've perfected the art. I, I still have ways to go, but it puts a lot of things in perspective. Would say typical day is making sure existing clients and their concerns are addressed, following
Mm-hmm.
up and working closely with the team on existing projects,
Yeah.
following up on proposals that we've put out there, creating
Mhm.
new proposals, meeting with prospects,
Yeah.
having the regular meetings with our existing clients and things as such.
Yeah. And has there been a moment you can think back to in the last five-ish years you've been a franchisee? Was there a moment you can pinpoint that was that catalyst for you where you looked and you said, okay, this business is legitimate. I feel good about this. There's money coming in now. This is something I can do long term. This is the opportunity that I thought it was out of the gate.
Yeah. Hey, Heath, can we take a quick break? There's a chat going on here. One of
Oh,
our client sites is down. Can you just give me a minute? I'll just answer to these questions and then we'll just pick it back from that
no
question.
problem. Yeah, I'll pause right here.
Mm.
Yeah, just to kind of reframe the question, looking back almost 5 years as a franchisee, can you think of a point, a specific time along that path where the business really started to click and there was money coming in? You felt like this is sustainable, this is an opportunity I can really scale, and this
Yeah.
can be the main source of income in the household.
Yeah. So when we started, when we were doing the due diligence, even before we signed with CMIT, I set a goal for the business. I said, okay, if we start this business, we want to build it to $1 million in 3 to 5 years. That was the goal. And we knew that we had to be at about $84,000 of billing every month in order to do that. And we knew that we are starting from zero. We knew what our expenses were. We knew we were going to keep it low. I wasn't paying myself. We were living in my wife's salary. By month 4, we were at a goal and at a point where we were breaking even. We knew what our expenses were. We were just breaking even for that. And I knew at that point that it's going to be time, and it's going to be effort, and it's going to be consistency.
Yes.
And if we keep on doing this, and if we do it properly and help our clients genuinely, and then we have a need, there is a need in the market that we can fill. So that was the whole plan. And we knew we were going to be there because I'd spoken to 10 or 12 people ahead of time, and they did this. I'm walking the path someone else has already walked.
Yeah.
I'm not reinventing anything. Like I said, I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to quit my job and build this app or build the next best iPhone or something. So this is a very, this is a service, and there is a need for this service in the market, and you're getting a sliver of that market share, and it has its capacity to grow to a certain point, and it'll depend on your appetite for it, and you can grow it to that amount. If you have a much grander goal and a dream, maybe this business is not for that, because there's a limit to what a managed services business can build, that you can build a managed services business to in today's terms. And that's a good amount. And you need to be comfortable. If you're comfortable with it, and if you have the energy and the time to build it, is going to be possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you were telling me before we started the recording that you've got multiple territories now and you've scaled this. So can you give me an idea of where your business is at today and the territories you operate, and book of business, how many clients you have, how big your team is?
Oh, absolutely. So we started with one territory, which was 2 cities, Tempe and North Chandler, and we're based out of Arizona. And we built that territory to about $800,000 in revenue in 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
In 3 years. And last year when we closed last year, what we did was we purchased this conjoined territory because one of the other owners who owned it wanted to retire. And we purchased that territory. Now we're hoping to build it again in the next 2 to 3 years to a similar amount.
Yep.
But the good news is we were able to hit $1 million. We were recently
congratulations,
inducted into the $1 Million Club for CMIT. And that's a huge milestone we were able to achieve in 4 years and 4 months. Some have done it fairly faster, some have done it slower, but I just wanted to be at a pace that I'm comfortable with and at a goal that I've set for myself, which was to be at $1 million in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And we were there at 4 years and 4 months. Yeah. And that's the beauty about running your own business. You can set it to be whatever you want it to be and just compete with yourself, which is what I like to do.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's amazing for you and your family.
Absolutely.
And looking back at your journey and the pain points you had in the corporate grind, the uncertainty, the limited growth potential, what do you think joining as a CMIT franchisee, what do you think it's really provided for you and your family that you were set out to gain from it?
For me, I think it was just so much that I gained from this. It's mind-blowing to me. As you can see, I'm like not the most confident, hotshot CEO type guy.
I wouldn't say that.
Right. So being in the corporate world, being the youngest kid of 3 boys and everything, I had a lot of doubts. I had a lot of self-doubt. Right. Yeah. And to be able to come into a franchising organization and get the support that I need, and having that hunger and being able to get up every morning and put that work in with the support of the CMIT system, with the support of the other owners, I could build this. And I'm very proud of this, right? That I was able to build this with the support of my wife, my family, my the other owners in CMIT who've helped me, the corporate office, our techs, right, who've helped with this. It's just a phenomenal thing that to be able to achieve. But I don't think this is where any of this ends. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm 42, and I'll probably work for another 20 years. So there's just no limit to what you can build this to, is how I'm seeing it. So would I been able to build this from scratch by myself, starting a thing? I don't think so. If I called up, I started my own IT company, picked up the phone and then said, hey, you're like 2 blocks from me. Can you tell me how are you solving this problem? Nobody's gonna pick up the talk to me about it. Or getting the word out about CMIT and the marketing. And I confidently tell my prospects, CMIT has been in business for 24 years. We've been doing it for 4 years. And there's history around it, there's relevance, there's trust that's there around it. So all of that goes a long way. So I don't take any of that for granted.
I think you should look back and be proud. You've created something really special, and I think you've done it the right way. So it's been great to hear your story. And I just have one more question, and then I'll let you get on with your day. But this has been great. Really appreciate it. You're familiar with franchise brokers or franchise coaches. So that's, what BAI is all about. We're a network of franchise brokers. And if you put yourself in the shoes of that franchise coach you worked with years ago, and you're going to present CMIT to a prospective franchise candidate, how would you present the opportunity to someone that might be interested?
I think if someone's willing to learn about IT, looking for recurring revenue, looking for something that they can build over a period of time with minimal investment. When I started, it was 90 to 120K, and we've reaped that back many folds. And we didn't even have to use all of the money that we put in, and we've paid back all the debt that we owed ourselves. So we loan money to the company, and we've paid all of that back. So we're debt free, we're profitable, we have recurring revenue that's not seasonal in a business that is a need, right? IT is a need for any company that has 10, 20 employees and above. And it's always, and the landscape for cyber security and cyber attacks and all of that is changing so fast. And there's not been a better time to be a managed service provider and provide that service in your community for the businesses that you want to support.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Arvin, thank you so much for your time today and sharing your story. This was a great glimpse into the life of a CMIT franchisee, and amazing story. Just can't thank you enough. Really do appreciate it.
Oh, most welcome. My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And
lived up to the hype too. You lived up to the hype.
I don't know.
Wishing you all continued success and continued growth in the Phoenix area. But thanks again.
Thank you, Heath. It means a lot.
All right. Take care.
You too.
That's a wrap on this episode of Beyond the Brand, brought to you by Business Alliance Incorporated. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to subscribe and stay connected for more insights on franchising success. Until next time.